We'll go to Rick, who's in Minnesota. Democratic caller. Rick?
Yes. I'd like to say that Lauren is correct in what she's talking about the 19th Amendment, and the simple, the most succinct way of putting what the troubles are is to say that all problems, or the 19th Amendment included, are the result, both collectively and individually, concerning gender, race, economic inequality, and all other sorts of things. To put it succinctly, all collective and all individual problems are caused by self-interest. The self-interest of billionaires, the self-interest of the people in power. And that's as succinct as I can make it.
Okay, Rick. Lauren Leader.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that we do have this kind of epidemic of self-interest in the country right now. And I worry about it very much. And in fact, some of my friends and colleagues who've been really trying to focus on, sort of solutions to the polarization have centered on the need for us to do more around public service. There have been efforts for years to bring back a public service corps. Obviously, I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but that kind of sense of civic participation and collective good, I do think has been eroded. One thing I'll just say about the work that we do at All In Together is that we're nonpartisan, and we have been very intentionally nonpartisan because we want to create a space where people can come together regardless of their party ID and focus on solutions and focus on the things that we want to advance as a society, namely civic participation and a greater voice for the American people, and especially for women in our democracy. And, my hope is that continues to be galvanizing. And I think there are, a significant number of Americans who, cherish our democracy, who understand the importance of voting rights and of participation, who do care very much about their fellow Americans and want to see public policy reflected in that. But we also have a lot of forces that, to your point, seek to undermine the collective good for personal power. And I think that is really becoming a more clarion call for many people, the sense that, hold on, at a basic minimum, we've always believed that our system should be fair. And if we're creating a system that is unfair, that is something that first and foremost we need to rise up against. But it's hard. And I think, for so much of the last 50 years, we've been used to this sort of positive ascension of rights and freedoms, meaning it's only ever expanded in most of our lifetimes. And I think that's part of why the Dobbs decision was so shocking for so many Americans, because it was the first time that we saw our rights rescinded. Whatever you think about abortion, that's the fact of what happened. And there's a lot of concern that something like that may happen around gay marriage. For instance, there are a number of cases before the Supreme Court that could potentially upend what is now considered a sacrosanct right, which is the right of gay couples to marry. So nothing is assured. And I think it's going to be the work of our generation, and I say ours collectively, those of us that are here on this planet, to reverse those trends.
We're talking with Lauren Leader this morning. She's the co-founder and CEO of All In Together. allintogether.org is the website. We're marking Women's Equality Day here in this conversation. Republicans dial in at 202-748-8001. Democrats 202-748-8000. Independents 202-748-8002. And you can text if you don't want to call at 202-748-8003. Lauren Leader, here is a text from one of our viewers who says, in each of the past 3 general elections, women have voted for Trump on an average of 57%. Why do women vote against their interests and principles?
Yeah, well, so let's break it down. So it's a very specific segment of the female vote. It's white, non-college educated women that it primarily drove those numbers. When you look at the numbers of Black women, 90+% of Black women voted for Kamala, voted for Biden, voted for Hillary. And that's been very consistent. So, and college educated women have also consistently voted to the left. So what you see is that there is this very deep, both educational and economic divide among women that exists, among all voters. Men are a little bit more consistent in the way that they vote, meaning there's more consistency between college educated and non-college educated men. And between now, we saw in this last election, an increase in the number of Hispanic men and Black men who voted for Trump from previous elections. But it is a very specific group of people, of women that, have voted consistently for Trump. And that's part of the point that I made before, which is that, I think it's been a terrible mistake of the feminist movement, to assume that women all agree. They don't. And I think that's clearer than ever. And I think that we, Democrats have not done a very good job of engaging, women in the center, women center right. Now, Biden did a very good job of that. And actually, it's part of what drove his victory in 2020 was that he won a larger plurality, especially of sort of women, like suburban women. We talk about them all the time because they tend to shift political ideologies. They're often registered independents or somewhere in the middle. Biden did an excellent job of that. Harris just simply didn't. And as close as the election was, she did lose, a significant share of those white non-college educated women. So look, that's a challenge for the Democratic Party to figure out how to find the right candidates that can connect, beyond these political lines. Like the brand of the Democratic Party is in deep trouble. The polls all show that the numbers of Americans who are registered as Democrats is declining. And so, I've been saying for a long time that the issue we really, every candidate, left or right, really needs to center on the issues and stop centering on party ID. It's just not going to win in the same way that it used to.
Jerry's in Long Beach, Washington, Republican. Jerry, question or comment here for our guest, Lauren Leader.
Got a question for you, Lauren. When you opened up your opening comments, you mentioned that there were you mentioned there were some right-wing bloggers that were trying to get the 19th Amendment repealed. I'd like you to give me 3 names so that I can do research on those folks and find out who those knuckleheads are. Please provide me with 3 names. Thank you.
Sure, thanks for that. So there's been this kind of like wide-ranging sort of undercurrent. One of the things that got a lot of attention this past week, and you'll forgive me because I don't remember the exact name of the person that he retweeted, but Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth retweeted a blogger who did specifically say that he believes that the 19th Amendment should be repealed. And part of why it got on, and I forgive me for not remembering the name of the person that he retweeted, but it got a lot of attention because this is the platform of the Secretary of Defense, who is himself a Christian conservative and has made, been very clear about his values. And that got a lot of attention because it actually amplified some of what has been an undercurrent in circles for a long time. The Southern Poverty Law Center and also the Anti-Defamation League both track misogynist hate groups and track the ongoing sort of noise that they are putting out online. What's been really interesting is that some of the groups, for instance, that were behind the January 6th attacks, the Proud Boys and other groups, also have very specifically misogynistic platforms that explicitly say they believe that women are inferior, should not have the right to vote, et cetera. So a number of the, sort of far right organizations also make this issue part of their platform. And that's been getting tracked by a number of organizations that look at, sort of hate groups generally. So forgive me for not having them right now. I'll go look it up and I'll be happy to post it on Twitter later for you. But check out if you want to just Google the retweet from Pete Hegseth, that will definitely give you some insights.
Patty's next in Reedsville, Wisconsin, independent.
Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
Thank you. This is all new to me. I'm 80 years old. I just turned 80. I was a career nurse. I was married. I had 2 grown, educated daughters. But my dad had a whole household full of women, and he was a woman's liber. He felt that women should be treated as equals. And it was easy for me to become a Christian because Jesus set the example of liberating women, and he was respectful towards women and encouraging and supportive. That being said, is one of the things that irritates me is, and I don't see this on C-SPAN, your host and you are dressed appropriately, but when I see mainline news, I see women with plunging necklines and tight clothing and showing a lot of their anatomy, and that is frustrating. To me, it's not professional reporting. Would you address that? Thank you.
Ah, well, I feel a little bit of compassion for some of those women because some of us sometimes have a little difficulty finding the dresses. And I once was wearing a dress on television, and I will tell you, I definitely was a little more exposed than I realized. And Twitter told me all about it afterwards, and I was very embarrassed. So it's not always people's fault. But look, I mean, I think there is, I think some of it comes, I was on Fox News for a long time, and they sort of pioneered the kind of like sexy news girl thing. It's their shtick. They've encouraged, a lot of their anchors to, dress in certain ways. But like, look, I happen to be someone who believes that it's progress, that women can make their own choices about how they look and how they dress. And, I may not, I'm turning 50, so I'm a little old fashioned on some things too. I'm pretty conservative, but like, I try not to judge. I let women make their own choices, and that's progress to me, is they like get to decide what they wear, when, why, and how.
Going back to the previous conversation, the website 19thnews.org has this headline: Who's questioning women's right to vote? A post from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth showed his support of a fringe evangelical Christianity that is gaining more traction in the Republican Party. For those that are interested, you can go to 19thnews.org.
And by the way, I really encourage people to follow 19th News. It's a terrific, nonpartisan, publicly funded, meaning like it's not a commercial news site. It's all donors. It's a 501c3, a nonprofit news site. It's founded by friends of mine who, to the answer, actually, I should have mentioned it before when the caller asked about misogyny in the news. The 19th was founded specifically to cover stories about women that other news outlets weren't covering. And they've been incredibly successful, and it's a really terrific source, very balanced, really just reports on things about how women's lives are going in this country in ways that a lot of other people don't.